NANI?!
Prepare for BattleTech departure. Warning. Hangar doors opening. Stand clear.
Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
Oh, hello friend. Today I have a little bit of BattleTech. Tabletop meets a trading card game as I paint a Black Knight, based on one of my favorite bits of BattleTech art. I didn't have too many cards from this and never played as Magic was more of my thing at the time. There is something about this card that really stood out. A very out there feel reminiscent of sci-fi from the 70s and 80s captured so perfectly. The armor is true to name, black. However, the armor isn't just a normal gray dull shine. Depending on your print and quality of the card, it can be more of a bluish or more of a blue-gray. I really like dank black-blue metal, and tried it once before in some Oathway Guardians a few years back, and I aim to repeat it again for this project. First, we start with a standard Black Knight. This Black Knight came in the Comstar Command Pack. I stripped him a few times as the prior paint jobs were a little lacking. Now set on a do-it-yourself wine cork blue tack paint handle. But let's move on and put some paint on this hull. The primer. Black surface primer from Vallejo. Smooth enough to airbrush without thinning and goes on evenly with a brush without need for multiple coats. Dries smooth to the touch. Though I always feel weird having the primer showing even when the base color is the color we want. So I went over it again with a thin coat of standard black. For the base highlights. Now I want to get some coloring. Start building up that blue tinge. I use a makeup brush, very cheap, usually only $1 at a corner store. This one specifically is a lip brush. Going to give a very aggressive dry brush with dark Prussian blue. Normally you want to be gentle and only hit the highest parts with the dry brushing. Here it's going to be a bit rougher to get larger amount of coloring with the black mostly being in dead center of the panels. I go from top to down and down to top, getting every last part that stands out. Yeah, I can really feel the glow starting. There's something about cobalt blue that just feels right. The highlight layer. The next color is dark blue. Now I'm going to use a standard type brush and go in manually for some highlighting. It's not going to be an over highlight going around every area and panel 100%. It's more like 60%. On the parts that stand out the most. On the corners I make small little quarter moons to help illuminate future highlights. The next layer is field blue. This is going to start to turn things to a bluish gray tint. Now going in manually again, the highest parts and corners like before, in a reduced area over the prior highlight to 30% of the area. It's really coming together. Now I went about putting some shine to the center of the most prominent and visible panels using the past two colors. I tried a little wet blending mixed with adding some small slashes on the panels of prior colors, not to add paint job damage, which would just be adding black line next to a color line. I just added small layers of the highlighted colors on top of each other. I find it to be a very simplistic and crude way, yet faster way of adding sheen and luster that blends together at a distance. They weren't really wowing me, so I went back over them with the dark Prussian blue, which only toned them down and made them look far better, so I left it as is. So for the final highlight I use blue-gray pale. This is used very sparingly to the corner of the highest panel edges. It completes the blue luster I was looking for. Now we still aren't finished as there is some traditional gray over black on the weapon barrels. Similar process as before, using dark gray, going along the barrels both length and edge of each weapon. Length doing some small horizontal slashes of the most visible area and highest point. I decided to put some on the back panel to break up a bit of the blue too. Next, we'll do the same thing again, reducing the area to 30% using medium sea gray. Lastly, the same pattern yet again at 10% of the highest points using light gray. We still have a few small details to wrap up, such as the lasers and the visors. For the medium laser glow mix, a 50-50 of German camo, bright green, and white. For the PPC and large laser, a 50-50 mix of dark blue and white. The small laser, a 50-50 mix of orange red and white. The last bit is the visor, with a base of black red, then a highlight of orange red. Looks good so far, but I still need some basing material. Normally I would use Citadel Technicals for this. I recently picked up Vallejo Earth Texture. It's a rather large jar at 200 milliliters that's filled past the rim with paste. I noticed an immediate difference. Earth Texture is more of a smooth gel with no dripping. Surprisingly, I was able to wash the brush fully clean after use. It's a very unique orange-brown. The downside is you have to push it around and sculpt it yourself to get the right terrain effect. In contrast, Citadel variants dry in a crackle or windswept finish to give environmental effects. The downside of Citadel is it's like painting with milk and oats, and the mixture tends to ruin a brush. It's hard to pick a winner here, but on the amount and cost alone at 200 milliliters for $9, the Vallejo is rather tempting. I'm going to try to spice it up a bit. I'll dry brush tan earth, followed up by a layer of Iraqi sand. Then I'll dab a bit of dark brown wash. I finish off the side of the base with some black paint, then seal it with matte Lucky Varnish. And we're done. One mech down, 3 more to go. 2 are most likely going to get pushed back to March. Next I'm going to palette cleanse project with some Italian, so that's it for now.